Palestinian liberation is black liberation. That means that Palestinian liberation is indigenous liberation. That means that Palestinian liberation is LGBTQ liberation.
Say it with me, free Palestine. Free Palestine. Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter.
Please, watch this video and you will see how BLM is an anti-Israel, anti-Semitic organization and movement.
In a statement posted to blackforpalestine.com, it appears as if every left-of-center black thinker in the world joined a renewed call for solidarity with Palestinians.
We invite you all to continue joining us in fighting against police terror and Israeli and American colonialism.
We rage in solidarity with the Palestinian people against the US-backed Zionist settler colonial states.
We need a dismantling of not just occupied Palestine, but of all borders.
You know, the same thing going on in Palestine. The ethnic cleansing, of African Americans.
Seattle is complicit in Israeli apartheid, colonialism, and military occupation.
Just as we fund our own brutality by the hands of the police here at home, we overfund overwhelming brutality against Palestinians by the hands of Israel in Palestine.
The militarization of the police here in Seattle, as everywhere in the US, is deeply connected to the brutal occupation in Palestine.
The military machine that does exchanges between the Seattle Police Department and the Israeli Defense Force.
We know that the IDF trains police across the globe, from Minneapolis police officers who murdered George Floyd to Chief Carmen Best here in Seattle.
The Israeli military is the same person that's training the Seattle Police Department.
We know that the same tear gas used in Ferguson was made by the same company that makes the tear gas used to repress the people's struggle in Palestine.
So today we're demanding to defund Seattle PD,
defund the police in Seattle, in all of the US, and end US military aid to Israel.
and the deadly exchange between the IDF, or the Israeli military, and Seattle police.
Defund the Seattle police, defund Israel Defense Forces.
We are calling on the City Council to pass an ordinance banning all trainings and cooperation between the SPD and the Israeli police and military forces.
You mayors, you governors, stop your police from going to Israel to learn how to kill better.
But it'd be a cheap cop-out to tell you that the police brutality in the United States is funded or caused by the Israeli military. Because the military in Israel is only 72 years old, and that's compared to 400 years of white supremacy in the United States.
The United States didn't inherit slavery from anybody. We created it.
No, Tim, America did not invent the slave trade. In fact, Arabs were trading slaves 700 years before the American colonies were. Let's talk about the Arab slave trade versus the Atlantic slave trade. 400,000 to 500,000, 6% of the slaves that crossed the Atlantic ended up in the colonies, North America. The rest ended up in South America. On the other hand, we have the Arab slave trade that enslaved over 17 million Africans. Why is it that black Americans today are teaming up with the Arabs that exploited them for 1,400 years against the Jews who were at the forefront of the American civil rights movement in the 1960s and against the state of Israel?
This is our shared intifada. This is our shared intifada.
Well, it goes back to the 1960s when the Black Panthers were actually working with the PLO and the PLFP, terrorist organizations, in their fight against the state of Israel.
The rich history of black radical support and solidarity with Palestine. You mentioned the Black Panther Party, who trained with the Palestinian Liberation Organization in Algeria in the 60s.
The Panthers offered to help the Palestinians in terms of political support and propaganda support.
Similarly, today we have BLM working with the BDS movement and other anti-Israel, anti-Semitic organizations.
I ask that you familiarize yourself with BDS, the Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions Movement.
Calling for boycott, divestment, and sanction of the state of Israel.
Demand that your nation sanction Israel.
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
BLM is a self-admitted Marxist organization.
We actually do have an ideological frame. Myself and Alicia in particular are trained organizers. We are trained Marxists.
What we have here is what's called the Red-Green Alliance. The red for the Marxists and the green for the Islamists. And we could see that coming together with BLM and CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, a court-documented front group for Hamas, a terrorist organization headed by Nihad Awad.
As Muslim Americans, we have a special obligation to combat anti-black racism.
I'm in support of the Hamas movement.
During the Ferguson protests, Palestinians in Palestine took to Twitter to teach protesters how to deal with the tear gas that was first used against them.
Ferguson to Palestine.
The Dream Defenders delegation in January was made possible by a lot of the developments between organizers and protesters in Ferguson, in St. Louis, and people in Palestine.
A delegation that was mostly composed of Black social justice activists, artists, and academics. Philip Agnew, Mark Lamont Hill.
From Ferguson to Palestine, the struggle for freedom continues.
Patrice Cullors was one of the co-founders of Black Lives Matter.
One of the first delegations that went to Palestine was led by the Dream Defenders. It was folks from Ferguson, folks from Black Lives Matter.
Palestine and Ferguson in the occupation.
I just got to say two things. Free Palestine and long live Black liberation.
Black Lives Matter.
I'm a fan of Minister Farrakhan because nobody loves black people more than him.
Former NBA player Steven Jackson was friends with George Floyd and has become one of the leading voices for BLM.
I need everybody to stand with us. If you're not with us, you're against us.
He became a zealot for Black Lives Matter in the greatest way possible.
After NFL wide receiver Deshaun Jackson posted quotes to his Instagram account attributable to Hitler,
that white Jews will blackmail America, they will extort America, their plan for world domination won't work if I'll just say, black people know who they were.
And also supporting America's biggest anti-Semite, Louis Farrakhan, Steven Jackson came out and supported him.
Jackson said that Deshaun was speaking the truth.
Regarding Deshaun Jackson comments, he was trying to educate himself, educate people, and he's speaking the truth. Right? He's speaking the truth.
So he believes that Jews are out to blackmail America and dominate the world.
Jackson then doubled down, saying, quote, "The point is, you did not say to me that Jews are not trying to divide the black community." He finished it up by saying he had not said one untrue thing yet.
Satan, the arch deceiver, the imposter Jews.
I love Minister Farrakhan, and ain't nobody gonna change that. Nobody.
Louis Farrakhan is so anti-Semitic that he's trying to deny Jews the fact that they're actually Jewish.
Those of you that say that you are Jews, I will not even give you the honor of calling you a Jew. You're not a Jew. You're so-called. You're Satan.
He's teaching me how to be a leader. He's teaching me more about my people and how to do what's right.
I don't understand how one of the biggest voices for the BLM can endorse the biggest anti-Semite in America and then claim not to be anti-Semitic.
Black Lives Matter.
I find it amazing that over 400 Jewish organizations signed a letter in support of BLM. This is similar to the Jews that worked with the Nazis in the 1930s in Germany.
No different to the theft of Palestinian land before 1948 to create what some now call Israel. I, though, will continue to call that land Palestine, Palestine.
How can you, Jews and Christian Israel supporters, affiliate and support an organization that is so anti-Semitic and anti-Israel?
Support for Israel will increasingly become part of a conservative platform and less of a bipartisan issue. Polls already indicate as much. According to a 2016 Pew Research poll, the share of liberal Democrats who sympathize with Palestinians has doubled since 2014. For the first time, more liberal Democrats are sympathetic to Palestinians than they are to Israel.
If after watching this video you are not convinced that the BLM organization and movement is anti-Semitic and anti-Israel, then you are refusing to look at the facts.
From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
Jews and Israel-supporting Christians, please realize what this movement is all about, and most importantly, come November, please vote intelligently.